Well, hello everyone. This is a video I wanted to put together, a lecture video on human development. What we're now getting into, we're still in the biological development stuff. This is the physical, cognitive, and social portions of human development. And this is the physical or biological part of those three parts. If you haven't already watched the videos on development from conception to birth, please do so, because today, or in this video, I am going to focus on biological development from infancy through adulthood. So at this point, our unborn child is now a baby. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. As far as growth after birth, the fastest rate of growth throughout your entire life is actually the first 2 years of your existence. Okay, during this time we could talk about what are called velocity curves and acceleration curves, but let me just say this. In terms of the fastest rate of growth during the first 2 years of life, from birth to 24 months of age, the weight of a newborn, typically 7.5 pounds, can as much as quadruple in the first 2 years, going from, say, an average of 7.5 pounds to around 30 pounds, and sometimes even more than that. So that is a tremendous change of weight in just 2 years, to go up by a factor of 4 in that regard. Also, it is not uncommon for an infant during these first 2 years to grow upwards, even in the first year, of anywhere from 6 to 11 inches in length in just 1 year. So always know that if you're asked what is the fastest rate of growth throughout your entire life, once you're born, and the answer is the very first 2 years of life. Now beyond that, ages 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and so on, we just continue to grow in height, we continue to grow in weight. The next real big change, okay, usually is one that most people are very happy has come and gone. We refer to it as puberty, okay? Puberty, as the voice cracks in the presence of that certain someone, okay? Puberty is typically characterized by not only sexual organs starting to function, but there's also physical development during puberty. In terms of physical development during puberty, we see the shoulders on a lot of boys begin to broaden during this time, and the pelvis on a lot of girls begins to widen, thus creating the birth canal in that regard. So not only is there sexual development, but there's physical development. And let me say this about sexual development. In terms of sexual development, what we're usually talking about are organs, sex organs, that have been there since birth, but now they begin to function. All right? During puberty, they begin to function. And that's what we're talking about, the beginning of the sex organs and their functioning, and physical changes in both girls and boys. Now, in terms of who goes through puberty first, I've asked this in class, and usually the ladies, without missing a beat, will turn around and say the girls, and they're right. Girls typically start puberty. Some textbooks can be a little different on this, and what I want you to know is about age 12 and a half. Okay, that's when girls typically start puberty. And in terms of primary sexual development refers to the sex organs, okay, and their functioning. For girls, one of the main signs that the sex organs have started to function is what we call menstruation, the beginning of the menstrual cycle. This is, in essence, the ability to create human life, all right, to have offspring. And it is a fantastic ability. I have nothing but the greatest respect, no jokes. It is amazing. So about age 12 and a half, this starts. Boys typically start puberty approximately 18 months later, around age 14. Some boys earlier, some boys later. And the same with girls. Some earlier than 12 and a half and some later than 12 and a half. But that is the age we're going with, is age 14. And the sign for boys that their sex organs, the testes, are beginning to function as they should, is what we call first ejaculation. Okay, so these are two signs that the primary sex organs, those directly involved with the creation of human life, are starting to function. Okay, age 12 and a half for girls, age 14 for boys. There is also what we call secondary sexual development. And secondary sexual development refers to changes that occur during this time but do not directly influence the creation of human life. Okay, for example, what we're talking about here, what we're talking about here is changes in ancillary hair, hair under the armpit, pubic hair, uh, changes in skin, changes in the voice, acne, changes in skin. These things do not directly influence the creation of human life, but they are a secondary element that is occurring and changing because of hormonal changes from within. Now, also during this time, the teenage years when this is going on, there are changes in height. Both boys and girls can go through, bursts, as it were, and so on. But a lot of people think that by the time you get done with the teenage years, physical development is done. And the truth of the matter is that ain't the case. All right. In terms of physical development in adulthood, there are still things going on. And you need to make note of the following. All right. If we're going to talk about physical development in adulthood, you need to know, if I go through these three categories, what age range is associated with each. Okay. So if you hear me mention early adulthood, I want you to be thinking approximately age 20 to 40. So when I say early adulthood, you should be thinking 20 to 40. All right? I'm not going to quibble over someone who's 19 and a half years old. Are they a teenager? Are they adult? It's just a simple way of putting it, age 20 to 40. When we think of middle adulthood, we think of approximately 40 to 60. All right. I will not ever ask you a question on a test. If someone is 40 years old, are they in early adulthood or are they in middle adulthood? It's not meant to be a trick. It's just how we lay things out. And if you hear the term late adulthood, I want you thinking 60 and beyond. Okay. There is even a fourth category called late adulthood, which is 80 and beyond, but I'm not going to get into that. You need to know these three here: early adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood, and the ages associated with each. Now, in terms of physical changes in early adulthood, please note this. Most of your senses tend to hit their peak, get as good as they're going to get during early adulthood. And once they hit their peak, a lot of them begin a slow decline. They start to go downhill, all right? But it can take years for it to really become noticeable. While during adolescence, you may have went through a growth spurt during, say, 1 year where you put on 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 inches of height, you will not see a change happen that fast here. It usually can take several years. For example, vision tends to hit its peak by age 25. Okay? After that, elements of vision, the eye begins to thicken, its ability to change and react to changes in sudden darkness or sudden light, it's not as quick. But this decline and sometimes loss of clarity in vision really doesn't happen overnight. You can get someone that has perfect vision at age 25 and may not notice till they're 45 or 50 that suddenly they need reading glasses, and that has happened. Now, I will grant you that some people's vision starts to go sour very early. Age 5, they're needing glasses and things like that. But really what I'm talking about here is changes that are detrimental in the eyes, usually starting about age 25. Today, it's not a big deal. If you have problems, you can wear glasses, you can wear contacts, you can get eye surgery. Having problems with the eyes now, cataract surgery, it's not a death sentence. People still do well nonetheless. Strength. In terms of working out and exercise, strength, flexibility, things like that, it tends to hit its peak about age 30. It doesn't mean that you can't stay healthy after age 30, but in spite of your exercise, in spite of your working out and all of that, a decline, a very slow decline can occur. And making major changes in terms of strength get to be harder and harder the older you get. So people who work out and exercise, say they're at their peak when they're 30, if they continue to exercise, they can minimize their strength loss to as little as, say, 10%, according to the research, by the time they turn 60. So, guys, I'm just using you as an example. If you're bench pressing 250 pounds when you are 30 years old, you continue to exercise and work out, you might still be bench pressing 225 when you're 60. That's not bad. Hearing tends to hit its peak by about age 35. All right. After that, some people start to see a very slow decline. They don't pick up things well in certain frequencies as well as younger people can. But even if that's the case, just like the other things, there's technology to help you out, and therefore it not be a problem. Okay? Taste is one of the few things that hits its peak actually outside of early adulthood. Ages 40 to 45 is when taste tends to hit its peak. What are called the gustatory nerves in the mouth and the tongue. That's not the end of the world either. A lot of people will just spice up their food to offset the fact that the nerves are beginning to deaden a little bit. And it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. So all of these things we can make changes for. We can make adjustments to. We have technology and medicine that we can help people adapt. So it's no longer the sign that, things are over by any means. As far as middle adulthood, there are no dramatic changes that happen in a short span of time. There are a few things worth noting nonetheless. For example, one of them is in women there is what is called menopause, the end of the menstrual cycle. Okay, and this typically occurs around age 50, though it can happen anywhere from age 45 to 55. You're talking about a system, an internal system, that has the ability to create human life, and it now is starting to end. It can take 2 to 3 years for menopause to completely occur. Okay? It does not happen in just one menstrual cycle. It doesn't happen in just one 28-day period. It can take 2 to 3 years from start to finish. And some women during this time lose bone density. There can be issues, other things related to health, changes in temperature, hot flashes, and things like that can occur, changes in mood. But believe it or not, menopause, which bothered people in generations past, for women, it was a sign you were coming to the autumn of your life. You couldn't create human life anymore. It is no longer perceived that way. Okay, it's just perceived more as a release than it is a sign that you're coming to the end. With men, really the biggest sign that this is going on, once again, there's nothing that happens within just a 2-year period, but for some men, achieving and maintaining an erection can become more difficult. But even there, another sign that you're coming to the autumn of your life, for some men, it isn't necessarily that, because now they have, pills that you can take and things that can help address erectile issues and so on. The last category is late adulthood. And as far as late adulthood goes, a lot of the physical changes that have been going on for the last 5, 10, 20 years or longer are now much more apparent. And at the end of late adulthood is death. But I will talk about that a little bit later. Okay, that's enough for now. Take care.